I need to come up with an idea for roofing for the Blair Lines Greens Feed and Seed. And it's not just the Blair Lines Green Feed and Seed building, it's other structures I want to build for my layout. And I'm talking about industrial style roofing. I got this with the Blair Line kit, and it's just a sticker. Now it has the corrugated metal roofing image printed onto the sticker, but it's not three-dimensional, it's just a sticker. And I'm looking for something, well, a little more three-dimensional. So I have a couple things I have in mind. One thing I'm looking at is trying to 3D print 4x8 corrugated roofing sections on my 3D filament printer. Now I've designed this model in Blender, and I'm going to try to get this model printed out on my 3D printer. After creating the model in Blender, I then export the file as an STL, and the Bamboo slicing software can read the STL file. So I load it into the software. Here you can see me sizing it. And I size the model as a HO scale 4x8 sheet. Now I can clone the model, and I can make as many as I want. And here you can see I've cloned 10, and they're laid out on the print bed. And here I've sliced the model and getting it ready to send to the printer. Here are the corrugated roofing pieces right off the printer. And you can see that there is a little bit of cleanup required. And there's a very small ledge right here where this piece can sit down on top. And I don't know if you can see, the pieces are pretty small, but and like if you were overlapping these pieces in the real world, this piece would be slightly higher since it sits on top of the piece below it. And so there's just a real small shelf right here for the corrugated roofing sheet to sit down on top of. All right, I have 10 of the pieces of corrugated metal glued on this piece of styrene. And to give you an idea of the scale of these pieces, here's one in my hand. And it's approximately 1 inch by 1/2 inch. There is a slight overlap of the pieces where the front of this back piece should be slightly higher than the back of the front piece to simulate it being overlapped over the top. Now once the glue dries, I'll clean this up a little bit with a brass bristle brush. I'll, wipe it down a few times to get any of the little fuzzies off. And then after that, I'll paint it and see how it looks. All right, I've taken my panel here with my 3D printed corrugated roofing panels, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know if you could pick out the individual panels on here. But I glued these down onto a piece of styrene and then painted them silver. What I did is I laid this upper panel on top of that little ledge that I had on this piece here. Now if you look, you can see this upper panel is raised just slightly over the lower panel. The next idea I have for creating roofing for my HO scale structures is to use heavy-duty aluminum foil and form the foil into corrugated metal 4x8 sheets. So in order to do that, I'm going to need some sort of a press mold to press the foil into shape. So I'm going to go into Blender and see if I can make some tools to form heavy-duty aluminum foil into 4x8 corrugated steel sheets. So what I'm showing you here is what I created in Blender. Blender is a 3D modeling software program. So I built this roller and a bed for the roller where the roller will engage with the bed. So I'm going to take these 3D parts that I created in Blender. I'm going to export those as an STL file. I'm going to load those parts into the Bamboo slicing software and print them out on my Bamboo P1S 3D printer. Here I have the parts as they come off the printer, and you can see that there's some support that has to be removed. That's not a big deal. It's a little more complicated with the roller. So all this support material needs to be taken off. And then there's a little bit of cleanup involved afterwards. That's the thing with a filament printer like what I have is you don't get the real fine detail that you get with a resin printer. But a resin printer, the problem with a resin printer is the mess and the smell. And, you know, I just can't have one in my house because they smell too much and they're really messy. But here you can see how much cleanup's required. I've redesigned the frame. So that handle was just too fragile, so I need something a little bit more robust. I'll remove this support. Let's see what I have. So here I have a piece of heavy-duty aluminum foil. It's a little tricky to get started because I got to make sure my roller is engaged with the grooves in the bed. I can't really feel it through the foil. Again, I don't want to press too hard. Just kind of slowly work the roller down into the grooves of the bed. So I don't want to tear the foil. Now the aluminum foil flattens out. You can see this copper just does not want to flatten out. All right, here's my sheet. I think the dull side looks more like galvanized steel than the shiny side. And how does that compare to my 3D printed parts? So I think I'll make up a few of these and see what I have. All right, so I've used some heavy-duty aluminum foil, and I've made up these 10 corrugated metal panels. I used my bed and my roller to make these panels. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these onto a piece of styrene and see how they look. Okay, so I'm going to glue these 10 corrugated metal panels, actually they're really metal panels made out of aluminum foil, onto this piece of styrene. I'm going to use Eileen's tacky glue to put them down. And I'll do one row at a time. This stuff is pretty thick, so I'm going to be careful with how I place the panels. All right, here we go. This should be an adventure. Now I should be able to overlap these. I want to be careful grabbing them with my tweezers that I don't crush the panels. Got some glue there. Got glue on my fingers. So I'll let this glue dry and we'll see what we got. The last type of roofing I want to try is a flat metal roofing with raised ribs. Now this roofing is very similar to what I have on the train room and my back patio. So I want to go ahead and try to create this in Blender, then export it and print it on my 3D printer. Well, I printed up this style of roofing. I think it looks all right. I have a little bit of cleanup I need to do right here on the ends where the print head went down, stopped, and moved. It's just a little bit of a raised edge here. I got to clean that up. So I'll either use my hobby knife and cut that down or just take a sanding stick to it and knock it down a little bit. And I think once I get 10 of these cleaned up, what I'll do is lay them out on this piece of styrene like I did with this corrugated metal, paint it and see how it looks. Now, like I did with the corrugated panels, I have this little ledge right here. And the panel above this panel will sit on that ledge and be slightly higher than the panel below it. And I'm trying to simulate the panels being overlapped. All right, well, I'm going to get this cleaned up, get them glued on this piece of styrene. I've taken the 3D printed flat panels for steel roofing, and I glued 10 panels to this piece of styrene, put a coat of flat white over the top, and you can see how the overlap looks where what I did is when printing these out, there's a small shelf right here. You can see it on this piece here. There's a small ledge on the printed part. And the front edge of one of these panels will lay down on top of this ledge here to give it that overlapped look. And here you can see that small ledge right here where I've laid this panel on top of it. And it raises up the front, trying to make it look like this panel is overlapped onto the lower panel. But I think this turned out pretty decent. I think that might be an option for roofing. If I want to mix it up a little bit between the corrugated metal and this more flat panel steel roof. So I have 3 types of roofing here that I've come up with. And this all came about because I needed something to put on my Blair line greens, feed, and seed structure. So I'm at the point where it needs roofing. And I wanted something better than the roofing sticker that came with the kit. So I have 3 options. I have this flat metal roof here with the ribs. I have this 3D printed corrugated metal. And I have this aluminum foil corrugated metal. I made this tool with Blender, the 3D modeling software, printed it out on my 3D filament printer. And then I was able to create these 4x8 scale panels here using heavy-duty aluminum foil that I got at the grocery store. Now, of these 3, this is by far the most time-consuming. But I think between these panels and these panels, well, these have a certain character to them. I don't know if they're actually better, but they certainly have a character to them. So I think it depends on the application. And I think these look okay, depending on the application. So I think I have 3 choices here that I can use for roofing, depending on what I want to do. All right, well, I think that's the end of this video. I now have 3 options for roofing for my scale structures. And I haven't quite decided which of these I'm going to use on the Blair Line kit. But I have options now for this kit and for structures moving forward. So I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you come back and join me again.